Part 4. Feast at Mecone. The summons came as thunder without lightning, words that bypassed the ears and wrote themselves directly onto consciousness. Zeus, king of gods and master of the new order, commanded attendance at Mecone, that ancient place where earth and heaven touched, where the boundaries between mortal and immortal had not yet hardened into law. All who claimed divinity were to attend. All who walked the earth were to bear witness. The purpose, Zeus declared with the magnanimity of the victorious, was to establish once and for all the proper relationship between the gods above and the creatures below. Prometheus heard the summons while he watched his humans take their first tentative steps beyond the valley of their creation. They had learned to walk upright, these beings of clay and breath, though they still stumbled often, their bodies not yet fully accustomed to the strange balance required to stand with heads raised toward heaven, while feet remained planted in earth. They had learned to speak, though their words were simple things, names for the sun, the moon, water, food, each other. They had learned to fear the dark and seek shelter from the rain. They had learned to hunger and to satisfy that hunger with roots and berries, though they looked with longing at the animals that seemed so much better equipped for survival. He had not yet told Zeus about them. The thunder god knew that something had been created. The cosmos itself had shuddered slightly when consciousness first sparked in mortal clay. But in his arrogance, Zeus assumed it was merely another species of animal, perhaps slightly cleverer than most, but essentially insignificant. The king of gods had more pressing concerns than investigating every new creature that crawled from the primordial mud. But now, with this summons to Mecone, Prometheus knew that concealment was no longer possible. His humans would be discovered, evaluated, judged. Their fate would be decided by beings who had never known weakness, never felt the cold bite of winter without the power to banish it, never experienced hunger that could not be satisfied with ambrosia that appeared at will. The gods would look upon mortality and see either pets or pests, either entertainment or annoyance, but not what Prometheus saw, potential that exceeded even divine imagination. The gathering at Mecone was to be the greatest assemblage since the victory celebrations after the Titanomachy. The very air shimmered with divine presence as gods major and minor converged on the ancient meeting ground. The Olympians arrived in all their glory, Zeus descending from the sky in a chariot pulled by eagles the size of temples, Poseidon rising from the sea with an entourage of Nereids and Tritons, Hades emerging from a crack in the earth that closed behind him like a healing wound. The younger gods came too, Apollo with his lyre that played music that could order chaos, Artemis with her bow that never missed, and her hounds that could track thought itself, Ares with his sword still dripping ichor from some cosmic conflict. Even the minor deities attended, nymphs of trees and streams, spirits of winds and mountains, the personifications of abstract concepts that had only recently been given form. The assembly was a demonstration of the new order's power, a display meant to impress upon all creation that the reign of Zeus was absolute and eternal. Prometheus arrived neither early nor late, neither humble nor proud. He came as what he was, an anomaly, a titan who had sided with the Olympians, a being who belonged fully to neither the old order nor the new. The other gods regarded him with their usual mixture of gratitude and suspicion. He had helped them win their war, yes, but he had also proven capable of betraying his own blood. If he could turn against his father and brothers, what guarantee was there of his permanent loyalty? But it was not the gods' regard that concerned Prometheus. It was his humans, hidden in the forests surrounding Mecone. Drawn by curiosity to witness this gathering of powers that they could not begin to comprehend. He could sense them there, these beings he had crafted with such care, watching from behind trees, with eyes wide with wonder and terror. They had no context for what they were seeing. Beings who looked somewhat like them, but radiated power that made the air itself bow in deference, whose casual gestures could reshape mountains, whose laughter could bring rain or drought. Zeus took his position at the highest point of Mecone, a natural throne formed from black stone that had been struck by lightning so many times it had turned to glass. Thunder rumbled constantly around him, a bass note that underscored his authority. His eyes, containing storms that had not yet been born, surveyed the assembly with satisfaction. This was his kingdom, his order, his law that would govern all things until the ending of the world, which, if he had his way, would never come. The stated purpose of the gathering was to establish the proper forms of worship, the protocols by which mortals would honor the gods. It seemed a minor matter, almost bureaucratic, but Prometheus understood its true significance. This was about power, about establishing hierarchies that would endure for aeons. Zeus wanted to codify the relationship between divine and mortal, to ensure that the gods would forever remain above, while mortals groveled below. It was then that Zeus noticed them, the humans hiding poorly in the forests, their mortal terror making them visible to divine sight like torches in darkness. His eyes narrowed, focusing on these creatures that were clearly more than animals, that possessed something that sparked recognition in the god's consciousness. He turned to Prometheus with a smile that contained no warmth, only the cold amusement of one who has just understood a joke that was meant to be secret. "So," Zeus said, his voice carrying to every corner of the assembly, "these are the creatures you've been crafting in your hidden valley, your humans." The word was new, had never been spoken before in divine company, and it fell from Zeus's lips like a stone into still water, sending ripples of interest through the assembled gods. Prometheus stepped forward, neither denying nor confirming, simply accepting what could no longer be hidden. "They are consciousness given form," he said carefully. "Thought wrapped in flesh, potential incarnate. They are mud given pretensions." Ares laughed, his voice like the clash of bronze on bronze. "Look at them, cowering in the shadows. What use are creatures so weak that a strong wind could break them?" "What use, indeed?" Zeus mused, though his tone suggested he was already forming ideas. "Perhaps we should test them, see what these humans are capable of. Bring them forward, Prometheus. Let them stand before their betters and show us what makes them worthy of existence." It was a command that could not be refused. Prometheus sent a thought to his humans, a gentle compulsion that drew them from their hiding places. They came slowly, fearfully, a small group of perhaps 30 individuals, men and women, young and old, though all were young by divine standards, having existed for such a brief time that their lives were barely distinguishable from non-existence. They stood in the center of the assembly, surrounded by beings whose power was so vast that reality itself bent around them. The humans huddled together, drawing strength from proximity, their eyes darting from one god to another, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by divine presence. Others remained standing through will alone, though their legs trembled like reeds in a storm. "They're rather small," Aphrodite observed, circling them with the casual interest of one examining a new type of flower. "And their beauty is incomplete, as if someone started to make something lovely and then forgot to finish." "They smell of earth," Demeter noted, not unkindly, "of growth and decay, spring and autumn, planting and harvest. They carry mortality in their very essence." "Can they speak?" Apollo asked. "Can they sing? Can they create?" One of the humans, a young woman whose fear had transformed into something closer to anger, found her voice. It was thin compared to divine speech, a whisper against thunder, but it carried something that made even the gods pause: defiance. "We are what we are," she said, her words halting as she struggled to express concepts for which language had not yet developed. "We did not ask to be made. We did not choose to be brought here. But we are here. We exist. Is that not enough?" The silence that followed was profound. No one had ever spoken to the gods like this, not with hatred or rage, which they understood, but with a simple assertion of being, a claim to existence that required no divine validation. Zeus's expression darkened, lightning flickering in the depths of his eyes. But before he could respond, Prometheus stepped forward with a proposal that would change everything. "Let us make a covenant," he said, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy, of futures seen and chosen. "Gods and mortals, divine and human, each with their role to play. Let there be sacrifice, a sharing between the realms. But let the mortals choose how that sharing shall be done. Let them demonstrate their worth not through strength, which they lack, or beauty, which they possess imperfectly, but through choice itself, through the ability to decide, even in the presence of powers greater than they can comprehend." Zeus considered this, his mind already seeing the trap he could set, the lesson he could teach about the proper order of things. "Very well," he said. "Let there be a sacrifice, a great ox divided between gods and mortals. But let the division be interesting. Let it show these humans their place in the order of things.